The Help for Wildlife Act is a bipartisan, comprehensive conservation bill designed to enhance recreational hunting and sport fishing activities, ensure common-sense environmental regulations, and protect wildlife and wildlife habitat. I introduced this bipartisan bill along with Senators Cardin, Bozeman, Klobuchar, Capito, and Baldwin. The bill also has been co-sponsored by Senators Johnson, Enzi, King, and Inhofe. I want to thank them for working with me in crafting this legislation that over 50 environmental and sportsman organizations have endorsed and that the Teddy Roosevelt Conservation Partnership has called the strongest legislative package of sportsmen's priorities in years. Last week, the Senate Environment and Public Works Committee heard testimony from several witnesses who agreed with the rest of the dozens of environmental and sportsman organizations that the Help for Wildlife Act is a significant conservation bill worth supporting. The Wyoming Game and Fish Department's Chief Game Warden and Chief of the Wildlife Division applauded the bill for exhibiting, as he described it, a reliance on the underlying trust in the abilities of states to make decisions regarding important issues affecting their citizenry, and for, quote, placing priority on and providing resources for America's fish and wildlife resources and the places that they live. The CEO of Ducks Unlimited, who's a former director of the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, testified, quote, "This bill is very important and has a lot of components in it that are important to all of us in the conservation community. This significant bipartisan conservation bill will improve habitat and protect wildlife throughout the Chesapeake Bay watershed in states like New York, Maryland, Delaware, and West Virginia." The Vice President of the Environmental Protection and Restoration for the Chesapeake Bay Foundation testified, "The Chesapeake Bay Foundation strongly supports the conservation programs included in this bill. They're important to the sportsmen and anglers in our region and to restoring the Chesapeake Bay." The environmental sportsmen's communities are enthusiastic about the Help for Wildlife Act for good reason. The bill protects the environment and it conserves wildlife and wildlife habitats by creating fish habitat conservation partnerships and by reauthorizing the North American Wetlands Conservation Act, the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation Act, the Neotropical Migratory Bird Conservation Act, the Chesapeake Bay Program, and the Chesapeake Bay Gateways Grants Assistance Program. The bill enhances opportunities for sportsmen by ensuring anglers can continue to use lead tackle and by promoting public target ranges for recreational shooting. The bill provides farmers with regulatory certainty by ensuring that they are not held liable for bird baiting for hunting purposes when they adhere to USDA and state agriculture best practices. The bill puts an end to the Endangered Species Act listing of the gray wolf in Wyoming and the Great Lakes, which will free up the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service to redirect resources that were being spent on the already fully recovered gray wolf to other species that are truly in need. It's time for this committee to take a major step towards furthering conservation efforts in our states in a bipartisan way. I urge my colleagues to stand with the 50-plus environmental and sportsmen's organizations and constituents that they represent who want further conservation efforts in this country. I look forward to passing this important legislation out of the committee today and working with my colleagues to pass it on the Senate floor. I'll now turn to Ranking Member Carper for his